So it's taking us about 45 minutes to 1 hour. And after a brief introduction, we'll go straight into the dungeons to see where British kept about 1,000 enslaved Africans. We'll come out to the yard and talk about some graves. We shall move on to the female dungeons to make it gender balanced. Then to the door of no return. However, I promise today we will all return, or we shall return. Because others have already returned. And if we do that, we have ourselves condemned in a cell. And if God willing, we survive the condemnation and still have some strength and time, and we shall go upstairs to see the residents from British. So basically, it's a long walk. And on a tour, you can take pictures, you can ask questions, comments are equally welcome. But let me say that we are going to talk about the transatlantic slave trade. And the story is very, very sad and emotional. What happened to our ancestors years ago. So psychologically, if today is the first time, you have to be strong. Now this is historic Cape Coast Castle. But the word Cape Coast itself, it is a corrupted Portuguese word from the word Cabo Corso, which means short cape. And that was corrupted into Cape Coast by the British people. And this castle we have here is the youngest and the last. Those coming, are you joining us? Yeah. Then please, can you come to the mother here? You want to get fresh air, that's why I leave that space over here. Come inside. Good. This is the youngest and the last castle we have in this country. We have 3 castles in Ghana and several of the forts along the coast that were built by Europeans, and almost all of them were used for transatlantic slave trade. And the first one is the one at Elmina. That was built around 1482 by Portuguese. We have one in Accra. That was built 1661 by the Danes. This one was started around 1665 by the British. So if you look at the ages, this one is the youngest. And this one was built at the time, slave trade that we are coming to talk about today started for about 200 years already. And it was its peak because slave trade started at the first castle, but not this one. It was during the 1500s when in the history of the whole world, there was this man called Christopher Columbus. He said he discovered the New World. So when he said so, the Spanish moved from Europe to those places and they established their plantations where they needed labor to work. So they tried to use the local people called the Native Americans or the Red Indians or the Cherokees to work for them. But according to the same Europeans, they said those people were not strong and they were dying from diseases. So there was a Catholic bishop. His name was Bartolomeu de las Casas. He suggested to the Spanish to look for alternative sources of labor to replace the Native Americans. What I've known that even before the start of the transatlantic slave trade, that Europeans came to build the castles like this along the coast of West Africa. There was what we call the trans-Saharan trade, which the Arabs took some blacks through the Saharan desert to Europe. So some of those people were taken from Europe, especially from Spain and Lisbon, to the New World, and they tried them, and they proved to be physically strong. So at first, the Europeans were taking Africans from Europe to their farm to work for them in Americas. But with time, the Africans there got finished because they were not all that many. So they had to come back to the land of Africa again to take the Africans to their farms. And that was the time Portuguese built Elmina Castle, which is not far from here. Portuguese came to Elmina in search of gold because this country was once called Gold Coast. So the gold brought Europeans. They will tell you they came to spread the gospel. That is never true. They came because of our resources. So Portuguese who were at Elmina in search of gold were given a license, we call it asiento, to legally transport Africa from Elmina to the Americas. So West Africa, Portuguese started the whole thing. They were there for about 150 years, buying and selling black people. Then Dutch attacked them. That happened in 1637. So Dutch were there for about 50 years before British came here. And when British got here, Dutch were at Elmina, occupied this land. So British fought them 1664 and they defeated them. And that 1664 historically was the year a state in America called New York, then New Amsterdam, also changed hands from Dutch to British. But the same year, British got the land from the Dutch. When the British got the land, they started building the castle. They built it in stages using free and cheap African labor. The construction went through addition, demolition. They built it well over 100 years. Now when they designed the castle, the dungeons like this alone had a capacity to hold about 1,300 Africans at one time. Men were here, 1,000. Women were at the other side, 300. They separated them. They stayed 2 weeks minimum to 3 months. It depends on their ships. But 1807, British came out with a law, said it stopped this trade. That was led by one William Wilberforce. 1814, Dutch did the same thing. But from that time to 1860 Africa, slave trade did not stop. It continued for 40 years and above. So 1860, the whole thing stopped. So this structure was used as a colonial administrative center. The British controlled the castle up to the time we gained our independence on the 6th of March, 1957. Then we moved the English out of the castle. So the castle, 1665, that British built it using free and cheap African labor till now, 2019. It is 354 years old. That is the age of this one. Elmina, the first and the biggest, is 537 years old. If you look at where we are now, this is part of the original construction. We haven't changed anything here. They used bricks like this to build the castle. And they brought all these materials from England because those days, British ships came to Africa empty. So they used these materials to balance their ships to Africa. When they were going, they used Africans as balance away. There was no cement, so they used grounded seashells, lime powder, and palm oil as the binding material. And they built the castle on a huge rock. The foundation is rock. That is why for years the building is strong. They didn't use any iron. And those of you who went to the Building History Museum, you might have seen that before the castle was built like this in 1665, this piece of land actually changed hands several times among several Europeans. Portuguese came here first. Portuguese. They came around 1555. They were in search of ivory and gold. They stayed here for a while, then they abandoned the land. So when they abandoned the land, 1654, Swedish also took over this land. The Swedish were here, all because of gold. So while the Swiss were here, 3 years after, Danes attacked the Swiss. When the Danes were here, Dutch also attacked the Danes again. So when the Danes were defeated, they went to build the castle in Accra called Christiansborg or Osu Castle. So while Dutch thought they conquered everybody, 1664, British crashed the Dutch here. So when the British defeated the Dutch and they built the castle, they knew other Europeans would come to attack them. So when they're taking the photo, you might have seen some cannons around. They brought those cannons for defense. That was why British stayed for a longer time and nobody defeated them because of the cannons. So this is in a way a brief background before we go to the dungeons. On a tour, I will tell you more, including how Africans were captured from their villages before they were brought here and humiliated here for months before taken away. Oftentimes they tell us Africans sold their own people, but I don't agree to that. There's no evidence there. So we talk about how they got them, then everybody will understand everything clear. So any question before we move to the dungeon to see where the men were kept 1,000 at a time? Any question? I'll pause.